Good afternoon and welcome to CJL 1690 AM. This show is called Cinema Smackdown, and today we celebrate episode 54 of the all-new, all-different Cinema Smackdown. I'm Michael Brody. I'm a local trivia host and cranky movie critic, joined today by my friend Shane Simmons, who is
slightly less cranky and doesn't know why he's here because it's the holidays.
Slightly less cranky. How dare you?
When it comes to movies, yes.
That's probably true. We're counting down the most underrated films of the decade. We've made it from 2010 to dear God, only 13.
2011 and a half.
2013 in 2 solid episodes. But we have a chart now. We have a map for where we're going. We're going to do 2014 and 2015 today, 2016 and 2017 next week. And then essentially we're done because we have already covered 2018 in extensive episodes last year.
Grueling detail.
So we are going to refer you back to those for 2018, and then we are going to take a 1-week, let's call it sabbatical, in the sense that we'll still do a show, but it just won't be a list countdown. And then we're going to jump in with the best and most underrated of 2019. And that will cover the full decade. So we're well and done with that. But at any rate, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing episodes. Our episode today is about 2014, 2015. I'm going to get things started with 2014. Are you ready?
I bet we can make it through all 4 years. We'll just ramble really quickly.
How dare you? I have so much to say. 2014 is the least amount of movies of any of the years that I have to say stuff about. Let's see if I can get through it in 30 minutes.
Let's see if we can agree on the release year of some of these films, because we have differing sources sometimes.
Dead wrong about your Stretch one. I went and looked it up. It's 2014.
Okay, fine.
I went to IMDb.
All right.
Last week, Shane, you accused me of mislabeling the movie Stretch.
No, I'm just saying IMDb itself frequently mislabels things because it ran at a film festival in, middle of the year and then didn't come out until the next February.
That's fine, but here's the thing. The movie Stretch, on the IMDb's website, on its page, has, in parentheses, 2014 next to it.
You realize we're the only people on Earth who actually give a crap about the release date of Stretch. Or the movie Stretch.
Well, I'm about to mention Stretch, but it's my runner-up most underrated film of the year, so I'm going to start with my actual most underrated film of 2014, which is a movie called Rudderless. Rudderless is a movie starring Billy Crudup and Anton Yelchin. It is directed, believe it or not, by William H. Macy. Here is the short description of this movie, which I had to cobble together from many descriptions which didn't come close to actually describing the film. So a grieving father stumbles across a box of his recently deceased son's demo tapes and lyrics. Shocked by the discovery of this unknown talent, he forms a band in the hopes of finding some catharsis. That is a very small way of describing a very big, at least emotionally big film. I take it you have not seen Rudderless?
I have not.
You unconscionable monster.
Yeah, me and pretty much everyone else.
Here's my review of Rudderless. Rudderless, which I consider to be not just the most underrated film of 2014, but easily the best movie of that year. Here's a review I actually wrote the other day. When you set out to make a movie like Rudderless, which is to say a dead serious drama that's focused on people achingly creating and performing deeply personal music, you had damn well better make sure you get some damn good music. And this movie is one of those films. There is original music in this movie, and it is heartbreaking and spectacular. Not just that, but on an emotional level, this movie kicked me in the stomach. It is incredibly well made. It is perfectly cast, and it is a very, very dry drama. Don't go looking for scenes of levity or lightness at any point. It is about a dad suffering through the aftermath of a tragedy, and it is a perfect film in its own way. And again, this is the big thing. When you make a movie about music, A, it better be good music, and B, the moment your character picks up a microphone, strums his guitar, and you can tell it's lip-synced, and he probably isn't even the person singing, I'm out. I'm 100% out. And there are so many good movies where someone jumps into a song and you go, wow, that is definitely not Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's probably the ultimate example of that, although it's a tradition that goes back in Hollywood many, many years, to the point where, it's hard for me to, appreciate, oh, damn, that's not really Rita Hayworth singing.
It's rough.
Yeah.
The hilarious thing, by the way, about Michael J. Fox references, arguably his very next movie is him in a band singing on stage, and he's singing in those scenes. Like, well, come on. I mean, even within that movie, he acknowledges he's not the best singer, but I feel like they probably could have worked with him to get a decent version of Johnny B. Good. Even if they had to augment it. I mean, Rami Malek sang all the songs in the recent Freddie Mercury film, which I hated, but they augmented the hell out of him, and he sounds like Freddie Mercury. They did it. I actually didn't even realize he was singing in these scenes, because in my opinion, watching that movie, Rami Malek opened his mouth and, well, they just started playing a recording, because that's
and then his giant fake teeth shot out and
lost
me completely.
Killed a grip.
Yeah.
At any rate, that is my number one most underrated film of 2014. It is a movie called Rudderless. If you're strong of heart, I highly recommend it. It is a rough movie, emotionally speaking. At any rate, Shane, what do you have for me from 2014? What is a very or most underrated film for you?
I'm probably going to go for my most underrated or largely ignored film is a little horror film. Well, it's hard to call it a horror film because it's really a romance, but it takes a while to reveal itself as having horrific elements, and that's a movie called Spring. Do you remember that one?
Yes, it is in fact a movie.
So you're a fan, is what you're saying.
Oh, I mean, I'm as much a fan of this as you are of Rudderless.
Does that mean you haven't seen it?
I am not going to cry. Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. I figured you must have.
It is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Film. It's perfectly fine.
Well, it can be a bit divisive. I've certainly shown it to people who didn't get it and didn't like it, but...
who are these people? I want to be friends with them.
It's a meet cute right up until you realize your new girlfriend is some sort of Cthulhu monster.
Yep, right until the tentacles shoot out of her mouth. Yep.
Yeah, it's also a nice travelogue of a film taking place in Italy, and ending in the ruins of Pompeii, which is amused me because I had actually been there recently just before seeing the film, so got to go. Yeah, been there, done that. Met the Cthulhu girl, romanced her. Yeah.
This is going in a very interesting direction.
What can I say? She gives good tentacle.
Listen, I remember the first 25 minutes of Spring very well, in that it is a man and a woman meeting and having largely believable conversations about, well, nothing. But it's just sort of wandering, and I don't mind movies like that.
It's kind of like a Before Sunset, and then...
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to highly argue with you on that one, because Before Sunset, Before Midnight, Before whatever, those are structured conversations, all of which have an eventual meaning, whereas the conversations in Spring, they peter out into nothing for me. So the reveal in that movie is interesting, and the wandering conversation aspect is interesting, but they don't mix for me. So I watched the movie, and when we get to the big reveal and we keep going from there, I was like, I don't really care about these people, and I want to, and that really just came down to, I don't know, more scripted dialogue or less scripted dialogue. I don't know what it needed, but I didn't feel that magic mix. And the thing is, I know many people do, it is a very well-liked film. In fact, it's too well-liked to be on a most underrated. Veto.
Well, once again, there are, people who know about film who will, of course, know about this film, and then there's the masses in general. It's like, I've never heard of this thing.
No, it's an excellent addition to this list. As much as I might be jokingly.
I would like to also point out, being in the publishing business, that there are certain genres that are very trendy at times, and I track this because I am a writer who certainly doesn't write to market and suffer accordingly financially. But one of the great subgenres that does incredibly well is called shifter romance, where, it's usually the guy who's like, I'm a secret
bear.
I'm a werebear. I'm a secret werewolf. I'm a secret swear closet, whatever, just some random thing that he shifts into. And this is, for as far as I'm concerned, shifter romance done correctly. Where I'm dating someone who turns into a monster sometimes.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to the movie we started out complaining about, which is Stretch. That's my first runner-up after my favorite film of that year, my most underrated. Stretch. Let me try again with my synopsis of the film, cobbled together from 18 synopses I read, none of which made sense. Even mine is a bit rough. Here it is. Stretch, a movie written and directed by Joe Carnahan, starring Patrick Wilson, and it's a massive ensemble cast movie. Alright, so, here's my synopsis. When his debt comes due, a hard-luck limo driver takes on a dangerous job in the hopes of earning enough money to finally pay off his bookie. Now, lots of what I just said is wrong. It's sort of right and is a good description. It is one of those things where a guy is presented in a moment with, you have a debt to me, and while we originally had a plan for you to pay it off over 6 months, I want it all tonight, or we kill you.
Now proceed and have wacky adventures.
Exactly. And so, Stretch is a wildly kinetic movie. If you're a fan of the Coen Brothers movie Raising Arizona, I'm not saying they're identical, but the opening sequence of Stretch gives the opening sequence of Raising Arizona a run for its money. It is very entertaining filmmaking. Things are happening, there's a rhythm to it. We're seeing event after event sort of flashing past.
Yeah, there's a preamble to the adventure that is, okay, this is how my life ended up like this.
And I absolutely think it is a brilliant short film. It is so entertaining to watch that little piece of Patrick Wilson racing through the events. I haven't seen this movie in about 5 years. So.
Yeah, I saw it last week, so...
Yeah. It is one of those movies where the main character has to run through a series of adventures, and on every one of these adventures we have a pretty famous celebrity popping in for 2 seconds to just give the craziest performance they've ever given.
Yeah, often playing themselves.
Yeah, like the Norman Reedus is quite...
There seems to be a competition in Hollywood for celebrities playing themselves as the most horrible monster versions of themselves possible. Norman Reedus gives everyone a run for his money and does it in a very subtle, it's the morning after. What did I do last night? Oh, this.
My last thought on Stretch, and it is one of those, you just want to watch something dumb and fun, it is absolutely the best dumb fun movie of that year, I think. The thing I'm going to say is, in about 90% of the movies Patrick Wilson is cast in, he's the wrong guy for that movie. I don't like him in general. He's a big block of wood. I will just reference Watchmen as a wild bit of miscasting for him. He just seemed like the last guy who should be playing a schlubby late 40s guy.
Yeah, we all wanted Philip Seymour Hoffman for that role, but,
At any rate, this is the film where I'm basically saying, yeah, Patrick Wilson, perfect guy. He is really, really likable in this role. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and come back with more of the best and most underrated films of 2014 and 2015.
I had a couple more things to say about Stretch when we come back, but...
No problem. I'm looking at the time and thinking, I can't believe this is my shortest year and it's going to stretch the full half hour. Because my 2015 is 20 fucking minutes. Anyway, we won't get through all of them. That's life. We got the same ads running this week we did last week because there's no update. There's also no dates on these. It just says, holiday ad schedule for Sunday.
On the bright side, there's also no one listening, so...
I disagree. We have thousands of loyal listeners, all of whom... emailed me earlier today.
Your immediate family.
They all emailed me earlier today. My parents forgot I even do this.
Yeah.
They listened a few times, but we are back, by the way.
Okay.
Here we go. And we're back on CJLO 1690 AM. This is Cinema Smackdown. I'm Michael Brody. I'm joined by Shane Simmons. We're running down the most underrated movies of the decade. We've gotten all the way up to 2014. and it's a race to see if we can actually get through it. You had a thought or two about the movie Stretch?
Yeah, I just wanted to add...
Patrick Wilson movie?
Yeah, I mean, you were comparing it to the Coen Brothers, although having watched...
only that...
Yeah. But watching it recently, the film it most invoked in me was Martin Scorsese's After Hours.
Sure.
Similar, like, oh, the sun has set, and now the crazies come out,
yes.
And I'm going to have a string of wacky misadventures as I try to accomplish the thing I have to accomplish.
Yeah, very true. All right, I got 3 more movies to cover very quickly. Do you have a pile or just one? Or?
I have a smattering, so you throw a few more in.
So here's one no one's ever heard of. So underrated, doesn't even begin to cover it. It's called Bagman. It is a movie, I won't even mention the director's name because he's never done anything before, never done anything since, probably won't. Now that I've given you that preamble. His name is David Grovic, G-R-O-V-I-C. This is a John Cusack starring movie. And here is the very short synopsis. I think this one is the actual synopsis for once. I didn't have to jigger with it. Is that a racial slur? Jigger? Now I feel like a jerk. Here's the synopsis for the movie Bagman. A criminal bides his time at a seedy motel waiting for his boss after killing several men and making away with a mystery bag. This is the only good movie that John Cusack has been associated with, I'm gonna say, without checking a list of his work, since High Fidelity.
He's had a long dry spell.
He's had 20 years of 2 to 3 movies a year, and every one of them is like, why are you in this? Why? Why are you in this film? We don't need you to be in this movie. At any rate, this is a good John Cusack performance. He plays a creepy, amoral hitman. And, or just criminal who's really not afraid to murder anyone who gets in his way. The entire film mostly takes place in this seedy motel where he meets character actor after character actor who kind of want to steal the bag he's holding, and he just brutally murders them. And it is so satisfying to watch a cute little film like this. Here is what I will say about it, having done no research. I am almost positive that this movie was self-financed by the director. It has that feel to it. It's like, I just want to make one movie in my life. I'm going to cobble together a couple $1 million somehow through loans, or maybe he's a rich guy, and I am just going to make this incredibly not financially likely to succeed movie.
Well, my guess is he's someone in the industry who, got his nest egg and a lot of connections and said, who can I call to come in for a couple days?
Well, here's the thing. It's the kind of movie where you get John Cusack, because let's be clear, I think he works cheap these days, and cheap compared to big stars. And you get your John Cusack, you get him in the lead, and then anybody else making the movie on the kind of budget this movie was probably made on gets their family and friends to play every supporting role. This, however, is not one of those films because at a certain point, Crispin Glover wanders into the movie, and later on Robert De Niro wanders into the movie, and you go, how is this possible? This is such a small film.
Yeah, I thought you only made terrible comedies like Bad Grandpa.
Oh no, I thought you were going to say terrible comedies like The Irishman. At any rate, Bagman is a delightful surprise, a wonderful little bizarre film noir. Highly recommended. John Cusack's best movie in 20 years. You want to do one?
Yeah, sure.
2014, what do you got?
2014, two longtime favorite cast members on Saturday Night Live, because they had such good rapport together and seemed to both really love movies. They had the same sort of nostalgic love of a certain era of movies, where they would make a lot of 1960s cinema jokes, to the point where I would watch their sketches, especially when they were working together, and going, who is this for other than you two? And that is, of course, Bill Hader, who we are both tremendous fans of because of his work on Barry, among other things. And now her name is escaping me. Kristen Wiig.
Did you only just see this movie?
No, I saw it quite a while ago, actually.
Okay, I thought we brought it up recently, and I asked you, and you were like, never seen it.
No.
Unless I'm just thinking of a different film.
You're probably thinking of a different film. Yeah,
no, they've only made one movie together. Go on.
They made a film together called The Skeleton Twins.
You were going to say Crew. I heard it in your voice. Skeleton Crew.
No. Well, no.
Stephen King
I'm still recoiling from my brain fart of not being able to get Kristen Wiig's name off the top of my head. Yeah, so the Skeleton Twins, little drama, bit of a dark comedy at times, family affair. Bill Hader is, they are twins, of course. Bill Hader is the gay twin who is depressed and suicidal, and they sort of reconnect and try and help each other through a rough patch in their lives. And it was just a charming little film. Both of them have been involved from time to time in less stellar projects, certainly. Kristen Wiig, of course, was...
You mean like It Chapter 2?
Well, I would go more Trainwreck, but okay, It Chapter 2.
Trainwreck is fine.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, It Chapter 2 is a train wreck. Trainwreck is It Chapter 2.
A train wreck in which Bill Hader is the best thing about the Trainwreck.
Yeah, it's got its moments.
As opposed to Kristen Wiig, who was genuinely in that Trainwreck Ghostbusters remake that nobody liked. And it's another film that one I've seen recently. And
wow, we should do a whole show about that.
Oh dear, I think that's been crapped upon to death at this point.
The important thing to understand about what you just heard is that was my front bottom.
Oh God.
That was the 10 minutes in moment where I said, and I'm writing this movie off. That is a not necessary joke.
Yeah,
anyway,
there's bathroom humor and then there's queef humor. Yeah.
I acknowledge nothing.
Are we allowed to say queef on the radio?
No.
Okay. I will be sure not to say queef again.
Go on.
No. I've there's not too much for me to say about Skeleton Twins, but I was charmed. Right. I was delighted to see them just be in this little film together.
I will tell you that I hated that movie, and I will tell you why. It is not because it is poorly made. It is because
you hate every film.
I really like Bill Hader, and his performance in this is a dude doing a bad voice, acting poorly. The way that he's like, I'm just going to come up with my Faye voice for this. It was, no, this is not authentic. You sound awful. So 20 minutes into the film, I hated him in it. And I love him in everything. So he worked double time.
Well, when Bill Hader has about 3 levels of playing gay.
Yeah.
So
he chose the one I don't.
So there's the straightest, lowest, most normal level is Richie from It Chapter 2, and then there's the Skeleton Twins. He's kind of noticeably gay, but not super duper gay. And then there's Stefan.
Right.
Stefan from Saturday Night Live.
You're right. I'm fine with low gear and high gear. I'm not okay with middle gear, which just feels forced. Like he's desperately trying to get into high gear, but he just doesn't make it. There you go. You actually managed to clear that up for me.
Okay, there you go.
I never thought about.
I'm glad I could illuminate why you hate this movie.
It's just his performance.
I was quite pleased by.
It felt wrong for me. I'm going to mention 2 movies super quick. There is a movie called Cut Bank, which is a little crime film about a guy who witnesses a murder and then complications that ensue. It's not. Here's the thing. Cut Bank. It's not actually a good movie, but it has moments where you go, okay, this is undeniably interesting. It has Michael Stuhlbarg, who is the star of a Coen Brothers movie. I think. Well, what is that movie called? I never remember. The man who.
I know which one you're talking about.
Anyway, Michael Stuhlbarg.
Certainly their most forgettable film they ever made.
Nothing Man or something.
No, not because
not the man who wasn't there.
Not the man who wasn't there. No, it was a serious
man.
A serious man. Yeah,
maybe that might be the title.
Something like that.
At any rate, Michael Stuhlbarg was the star of a Coen Brothers movie, and in this movie, he plays a Coen Brothers movie who has escaped from one of their films and is doing his own thing. He plays a man way into the spectrum who is doing a lot of very strange things, who would be 100% at home in a film like Blood Simple or No Country for Old Men. However, he's in a movie called Cut Bank, where every other character is in a different movie, but he's amazing in this. So Cut Bank has that as a value. That's my recommendation. And finally, my last movie of 2014 is a film called Come Back to Me. Come Back to Me is an extreme horror film. If you don't want to watch something awful, do not watch this. But I really enjoyed its little moments. It's not a perfect film, but it has some uncompromising stuff in it. And here is my take on trying to write a synopsis for it. Here it is. Sarah can't shake a bad feeling that maybe she's been murdered, and that somehow it's happened again and again. Is this all in her mind, or is her creepy next-door neighbor killing and somehow resurrecting her over and over again? I really don't want to recommend this movie because it is, just like The Neighbor, super creepy. But it managed to do several things I'd never seen a film do before. It made me super uncomfortable, but it also... It never backed down from its concept. And it is a rough concept, so... That's it. That's all I have to say about that one. Avoid like the plague if things make you upset. Because it is a deeply upsetting film. At any rate, it almost could have been a Lifetime movie, except for some of the extreme moments.
Uh-huh.
It's just like a couple.
Well, we both have a taste for extreme horror films.
Yeah, I do. And this is one of those I'm kind of embarrassed at how much I like it and don't recommend it. Again, don't listen to me. Go watch this and then get mad at me. All right, Shane, anything else for 2014?
Yeah, my extreme horror film pick would probably be Starry Eyes.
Yeah, that's a not extreme though.
It gets nasty. It's an aspiring young actress finds out just how far she's willing to go to become a star in Hollywood.
But didn't we already talk about that a couple weeks ago, or is that this year? Is it 2014?
Yeah, it's a 2014 film.
I thought you were just reminiscing.
No.
All right, yeah, Starry Eyes is a good movie.
Yeah. Yes, it does get harrowing, and it does put her in a creepy audition scenario where you kind of wonder, are you auditioning for a snuff film? Oh, if only it were that pleasant.
That's a real rough review.
Well,
I feel like we watched slightly.
It gets harsh and ugly the way few films dare to.
It is the, I've got a Hollywood dream. Do you have a Hollywood dream? Come into this room where we promise you everything and then destroy you.
Yeah, it is certainly a good film to show aspiring actors to convince them, you know what, don't go to Hollywood, don't even try to do this crap. You will sell your soul quite literally in some cases.
All right, do you have any more 2014s? Because I'm out.
I can move forward.
Okay. If you have any titles to throw out real quick for 2014, feel free.
We'll see if we get towards the end and we want to just wrap it up really quick.
2015, we did it with 2 minutes under the wire of the half hour. Wow, I have 10 times more films to talk about for 2015, so I guess I'm going to have to say a lot of titles and not really explain them. 2015's most underrated film is by far also its best movie. This movie did get a lot of praise, but nowhere near enough. It's Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, yeah.
Bone Tomahawk came out in 2015. It was a revelation movie. It was the debut of a voice, a new cinematic voice, who has since become, in my mind, the most important filmmaker working today. It's S. Craig Zahler. We've covered this on the show a few times, so I'll be quick about it.
Yeah, if you listen to the show at all, you know how much we disregard and hate this guy.
That's why we did a whole episode complaining about him.
And while we're reading all his books.
Bone Tomahawk, here's the synopsis I cobbled together from multiple other synopses that I felt were really, really weirdly written. In the dying days of the Old West, an aging sheriff and his posse set out to rescue their town's doctor from cannibalistic cave dwellers. That is such a small version of what this movie is.
It's a Western troglodyte film.
Yep. The thing I would say about Bone Tomahawk is it's a Western. It's a little on the extreme side. It's very compelling. But the thing that this movie did that no movie had done for such a long time is it has quiet moments where people reflect on things and have little meaningless conversations that make me care about them. There is a scene by the campfire where the sheriff has a short chat with his deputy about taking a bath. It is the finest moment of unimportant information in the last 20 years of film, where a character just says something silly, another character acknowledges it, and as soon as that scene was over, I said, now if these people die, I am going to cry my eyes out, because they're real people.
Mm-hmm.
And he does that in every film. Every one of Zahler's movies has moments where some character just talks about something simple, and it makes me believe they're real. And nobody has pulled that trick off in years. It is the rarest of talents. That's plenty. I've said plenty about Bon Tomahawk. It's a masterpiece.
When they try and do conversations like that, it's usually a collection of contrived nostalgia, pop culture nostalgia crap.
Exactly. And Zoller doesn't go anywhere near that stuff.
It is also, we should mention, another case of excellent Patrick Wilson casting. Really? Really?
He's good in this movie.
I felt for him in this film as I've never felt for him in anything else.
If you switched him and Matthew Fox, I actually think I'd like the movie more.
No.
Which means Matthew Fox playing the nice guy and Patrick Wilson playing the racist dirtbag. I kind of think I'd be better with it.
And yet the racist dirtbag who has a certain nobility about him that you... Again, he's another character. It's like, I love this character.
Yeah, and Matthew Fox, let's be clear, is not good in anything else. He's fine on Lost. I just don't like him as a film actor so far. It is also one of the two films from that era where you get to see Kurt Russell at his mustachiest. Yes. I will remind the listener, we are on CJLO 1690 AM. This is Cinema Smackdown, and we're running down the most underrated films of the decade. We have somehow managed to make it to 2015, a year we're sadly going to have to race through. Give me your first 2015 movie.
I'm going to say my pick for most underrated film of the year is an unusual comedy, and I don't pick many comedies. Mm-hmm. But there's something about it that just really won me over, and that is a little film that nobody liked called The Bronze.
I thought you were going to say something else. I have The Bronze on my list. I just wanted to double check if I had a synopsis. Okay. I do not, but I do have one sentence.
I can handle it, yeah. So, this is obviously a little passion project of Melissa Rauch, who, of course, made her bones in many seasons of The Big Bang Theory.
And she's awesome on that show.
She is, and seeing her in this, you will hardly recognize her as the same person.
She's amazing in this film.
Yeah.
It is a bravura performance. I can't say that word.
Bravado?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
We'll go, whatever.
It's good. She's good in this.
She's good playing a monster.
Yes.
Because she is someone who... she won a bronze medal at the Olympics in gymnastics years earlier, and she's been coasting on that fame ever since. Living as a parasite off her dad, being the big local celebrity in a very small town, and being a monster. Just sponging off of everyone.
Here's my one-sentence review of The Bronze. It is a comedy of near genius and worth of viewing by anyone just for the single best masturbation scene that will ever be committed to film.
None better occur to me.
There will never be a better one. That's how I am fully convinced this is the winner. It's like there should be an Academy Award. Best movie ever? Well, this is...
And it is a scene that pretty much launches the film. So it's one of those scenes where you either appreciate the genius of this moment or you're out.
Yeah. You good with that?
Yeah. What can I say? Just wonderful dark character study. Highly recommended.
Yeah. My next movie is my first runner-up for 2015 would be 99 Homes. I take it you still haven't seen this?
Still haven't, no.
You monster. It is written and directed by Ramin Bahrani, and it stars Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon. The synopsis for 99 Homes is a recently unemployed father A recently unemployed single father struggles to get back his foreclosed home by working for the real estate broker who is the source of his frustration. 99 Homes falls into a weird category. It is the weird buddy picture. Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon start off as bitter adversaries, but quickly wind up depending on each other. And this is one of those acting movies where these two guys are going all the way with their performance. It is one of a couple of Michael Shannon movies that made me realize, oh, this is the best actor working today, period. He is mostly inaccessible in most of his roles, but once in a while, like, something creeps through a moment of humanity. And when someone is as cold as he is and as villainous as he is in so many movies, the moment I see humanity in it, I just can't get enough of it, and it's just turned him into the guy I'm most interested in seeing be a star, be a leading man in his own way. But more on that when I get to my 2016 movies. I just wanted to mention with 99 Homes, it is a really unique examination of male bonding, which is very strange. Great film, a little on the rough side, especially on the family emotional level. It's a little rough. Actually, my last thought was it's kind of a version of the Faust story. Kind of. A little selling your soul. Good movie. So that's 99 Homes. You got another one?
Yeah. I would like to mention, I don't know how to introduce this without giving it away, so I will just say there's a little party film called The Invitation.
Yeah.
You had that look on your face like,
no,
are you going to disagree what year this came out?
Look, we're doing a show about underrated movies. This movie has been championed left, right, and center by everyone.
You're not talking about the normies. Normies only see Marvel movies and Star Wars movies and Pixar movies.
Look, the day I mention a Marvel movie on this is the day you can fire me, but until then...
All these films I've shown to rooms full of people who have never even heard of them.
Yeah,
you're living on a different plane of existence to the regular moviegoer.
I agree that The Invitation is an excellent film. Not that it's underrated, but go on. Tell us all about this little movie that is the highlight of Netflix.
Well, if you go by that virtue, there's just people who will watch anything on Netflix because, whatever, we don't go out to the cinema anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it's an awkward little dinner party film that escalates. Mm-hmm. And, including having an ex-wife and mysterious guests who start to make a pitch, kind of like when you have a party and someone wants to sell you Amway. Only in this regard, it's kind of trying to sell you on the idea of a cult.
What an awesome cult, though. Things are going to be great if you join this cult.
Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong, and the scale it goes to is surprising in that it's only in the closing shots do you realize the scope of what you've just watched.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful film. It's extremely uncomfortable in the best way. You're like, wow, they really succeeded at making something great here.
But just to please you, for my next film, I will pick a home movie shot on Super 8.
All right. Very quickly, I just want to make sure that this is understood. If you were listening carefully to my previous statement, my next most underrated movie of 2015 is Marvel's Avengers Age of Ultron. No, I am not joking. I will fully accept being fired right now. The reason that I bring this movie up is purely for the underrated factor, because, let's be clear, there isn't a human on Earth who hasn't heard of this film on some level. But here's what I want to mention about this movie. Age of Ultron is Joss Whedon's second Avengers movie, and everyone hates it. They hate it. Everyone remembers this movie as that movie where he wrote the Black Widow as a victim, and he has a bunch of robot fights. That's all people remember about this movie. It is not the worst, bottomest Marvel film. It is the finest written, best character work, greatest arc. I don't care about the main plot. It's irrelevant. What I care about is James Spader playing the greatest character in any superhero film. I don't care. Bring up Super. Bring up anything. I prefer Spader's interpretation of Ultron than I do anything else. But really, here's the most underrated thing about Age of Ultron. Simply, the movie is 2 hours and 27 minutes. So what is that? That's 147. In 147 minutes, there are minimum 147 of the greatest lines of dialogue I have ever heard. in many minutes, there is more than one. They are so clever, so character-defining, so boundary-pushing. And this movie gets zero credit for that. I think it's Whedon's greatest work, and I think that his other greatest work is 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a lot of material. At any rate, even though it's a Marvel movie, I still think it is the most underrated of all their films. Feel free to crap on it now.
No, I think it deserves bonus points, if only for daring to have a scene where the Avengers have a drunken Thor hammer lifting contest.
Yep.
Moments like that make me like a superhero team.
Yep.
That won me over more than probably any other character moments we've seen of Marvel characters interacting.
It also has a moment where the villain, about to be defeated, turns to the heroes and says, "You know, in hindsight," only to be punched to death by the Hulk before he can finish his thought. Which is magic. You know, in hindsight. That is right up there with Dance Off Bro, Me and You, as, wow, where did this come from? I'm so ready to write off these Marvel movies, and then they do these little...
Yeah, there's always those moments that go, "But big monster!" And it's like, oh... I do love that.
What is your next 2015 movie?
Oh, God, now you're putting me on the spot, because, that Super 8 home movie I meant, that was entirely fictional. There's probably plenty of them that exist out there, but neither of us have seen them. Let's see. You know what? I have almost nothing. Okay, you know what?
Insane to me.
Well,
okay, that's great.
No, this is actually my weakest year for stuff.
Wow.
And I'm afraid to even mention anything because you're going to go, well, that's the most famous movie that ever came out this past century. So what are you talking about?
Give me the titles real quick.
Okay, well, one of the ones that I did want to mention, The Lobster. How about The Lobster? Can we mention The Lobster?
It's like one of the most famous independent films of all time.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're done.
Crazy.
So
that's
more.
Like saying, remember that movie Jaws? No one ever saw that.
More on the masturbation scene in The Bronze. So.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take away your opportunity to speak. The Lobster is a very divisive movie. The thing I like best about it is the thing you most disagree with my interpretation in terms of the film. Because my interpretation of Lobster is, yeah, they're a bunch of fucking liars. And your interpretation is, no, it's all real. I'm like, if you think this movie is real, you should hate it. But that's me. We disagree on the crux of the point of the film, which is very funny. I still like it. I don't love it. You love it, right?
I don't love it as much as this previous film because I'm a big fan of Dogtooth.
That movie is very special.
Okay, so instead I'll bring another one.
Instead, we did do that one.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
If you say we did that, we did that. I will bring this up just because. Fine, here's an obscure film that I don't think anyone really bothered to see.
Sure.
But I watched it, and I will say the greatest thing this film brought to me that I will remember for it always is the finest male merkin scene of all time. And that is The Overnight.
Oh, I like The Overnight.
There you go. Oh my God, I hit one.
I almost brought that up as an underrated movie, but I have 15 others that I thought were more underrated. But it is a good film. It's a good film that requires male nudity of the two male leads.
Yeah. And they're wearing, I'm going to call it a cock sock. It's not actual genitalia, and it's like, well, that's an interesting choice of Rick Baker effect.
I would just argue that it is a complex comedy where characters take odd points of view. And speaking of odd points of view, we'll be right back after these messages. Alright, I totally forgot we had to go to a commercial.
Oh well.
This is a super weird ad I've never heard before.
So even without Tess here, I've managed to say merkin, cock, sock, and queef.
I used that word once, which I really regret. I don't want to do that, but I said it fast.
Yeah, it was so fast. It was almost its own bleep out.
That's good. That's what I prefer that. But yeah, like The Invitation and The Lobster, they're right. If all you've ever seen is, Star Wars and Jaws, it's a revelation. They're a little. I mean, I prefer the stuff where you're like, who?
You realize most normal people see 5 movies a year.
Yeah, well, they're not film fans. They're also not listening.
Yeah.
Sorry, you do you. I apologize for being an ogre about this. You do you. I think we're done. And we're back on CHL 1690. Our show is Cinema Smackdown. We are counting down the hits from the last decade. Apparently, we disagree a little bit on format, but my apologies if I'm coming off as the world's biggest ogre, arguing that your film choices don't count. I guess the show's called Smackdown, so I'm probably wrong about this.
Consider myself duly smacked.
I will bring up my next my next underrated movie from 2015 is a little movie called Mr. Right. Mr. Right is a movie starring Sam Rockwell and Anna Kendrick. The synopsis would be: a girl falls for the perfect guy who happens to have one fatal flaw. He's a hitman on the run from the crime cartels who employ him. Just a quick thought on this movie. It's all I have to say about it. Some movies succeed purely on the charm and charisma of their main actors. Mr. Right is just such a film. Sam Rockwell and Anna Kendrick are delightful in this movie. I think you'd at least agree on that. I know you don't love this movie.
They are... I mean, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed it. But, I mean, it does suffer from the fact that it is yet another... what did Max Landis write this week? And, of course, we're not allowed to like Max Landis films anymore because apparently he's a monster.
He's been Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson or Me Too'd or whatever. He's had a string of his...
Yep. Understandable.
String of your an awful person scandals.
I'm going to review this movie purely on the basis of Sam Rockwell dances throughout this movie, in actual dancing, in verbal dancing, in physical action sequences, and I can't get enough of seeing him play a role like this. They gave him an Oscar for 3 Billboards, but I like him a lot more in this movie.
I'm also thinking a good standout is Tim Roth in this.
Yeah,
I quite enjoy him as his world weary approach to taking out this assassin and sending in the team that's just doomed.
Another 2015 movie that I'm pretty sure you still haven't seen is a film called Unfinished Business. Still no on that
one? Oh, no.
You need to re-listen.
I don't watch films anymore,
you need to re-listen to this episode, go through all the list of the ones I keep telling you to watch, then we'll do another show about your reactions to all the films that I'm mentioning. So, Unfinished Business is a movie written by Steve Conrad and directed by Ken Scott. It stars Vince Vaughn, Tom Wilkinson, and Dave Franco. The synopsis for Unfinished Business is this. A hard-working small business owner and his 2 associates travel to Europe to close the most important deal of their lives, but what begins as a routine business trip goes off the rails in every way imaginable. This is a comedy which is deeply rooted in a serious drama, which is really strange, because it's never not a comedy, but there's just moments with the Vince Vaughn character getting through his situation where he talks to his family, and you think, yeah, this is really rooted in a serious moment. And then they go off to a weird sex show because they happen to be in Amsterdam. And it's a very, very well-written film. It got no love when it was released and continues to get no love to this day. I have never read one positive thing ever said about it.
Yeah, that's all I know about it is bad reviews.
I would call this deeply satisfying as films go.
Mind you, last week we were singing the virtues of The Counselor, which is another film that got nothing but bad reviews.
This is the Counselor of Vince Vaughn movies. Anyway, I absolutely love the movie Unfinished Business. It worked for me on a number of levels. The male bonding aspect, the fact that they're working in an imaginary industry in this, and that it's basically going obsolete. It's a very interesting film about redundancy and people's value in life beyond their value to a corporation. and Vaughn's really, really good in it. It's the I mean, there's no magic word for the with McConaughey. You've got the McConaissance. What's the Vince Vaughn? Because we're a couple of years into it, we're going to mention his real miracle performance.
Yeah.
But this one's
he's certainly gone from being an actor and comedian I've just dismissed and just didn't care about for the longest time.
That's why you see this film, sir.
I know. Well, increasingly he's been in stuff that I think is pure magic.
Yeah. My next movie from 2015 is the movie Burnt, which was poised to be a big hit. It's the Bradley Cooper chef movie, and arguably nobody has seen this, and the people who have don't like it, but it's such a good film. It's written by Stephen Knight and directed by John Wells. John Wells is the guy who did all of ER, and then went on to recreate the British show Shameless, and Shameless is among my favorite writing ever. There's 10 seasons of Shameless now, and he's still working on the show, executive producing it, directing certain episodes, and it's such an interesting drama comedy. But he jumps into film every so often. He made this movie called Burnt, and here's my review of Burnt. It's straightforward. What if a movie about cooking and serving food was secretly an action film? The structure of this movie is a down-and-out chef who is in his own personal purgatory, comes back, assembles a super team to essentially, it's not a fight though, he has a magic goal. I want to open a restaurant that earns me 3 Michelin stars. And the whole thing has a strange action movie structure with the way that the things are conspiring against him and his overcoming of the odds. I just loved it. And why do people not like this film? It really did come out at a point when everyone was like, Bradley Cooper, whatever he does is going to be great. And then no one saw it. I guess it's him in an apron. Just doesn't.
Well, they were all waiting for A Star Is Born to win them back. So.
My next 2015 movie is again a movie that I cannot believe it's been 4 years and you have not seen this, as it is a cinematic masterpiece. It is a film called Cop Car, starring Kevin Bacon. Here is the plot of Cop Car.
No, I was sitting around waiting for the director to make a Spider-Man movie, obviously.
Here is the smallest synopsis of any movie. 2 kids steal a cop car. That's it. That's this movie. Now you start watching it. It rivals Blood Simple as here's my first movie. It's a tiny thriller. Wow, is there a lot of potential here. When this director, John Watts, was announced as the director of the following Spider-Man movies, I got so excited until I watched them and saw that nothing of John Watts was left in those films.
That's because everyone who makes a Marvel movie now has a gun to their head, forcing them to make it in a house style.
Yeah, it was sad to me. But it's not like the Spider-Man movies are terrible, but they don't have the kind of potential that Cop Car did. I want him to be fired from the Spider-Man films. I want him to go back to his indie roots and make 10 more micro-budget thrillers like this. This movie is a masterpiece. I can't love a film more than this. Cop Car, see it, damn it. No one has seen this movie. Another film I love from 2015 is called Blunt Force Trauma. Why do I love Blunt Force Trauma? It's not like it's 99 perfect minutes, but it is the weirdest, most interesting concept for a film. It's a modern-day gunfighting movie. Now, what is a modern-day gunfighting film? Well, it's kind of like Fight Club. We're going to gather a bunch of people, and then 2 men are going to get into a ring. They're going to strap on bulletproof vests, stand in a drawn circle, and unload handguns at each other's chests until one of them steps out of the circle. It's a betting thing. I loved this concept so much. The idea that the main character is a guy who goes from town to town gunfighting for a living. Again, not a perfect film, but it's so weird. I just couldn't get enough of the concept. It stars Ryan Quanten, who I'm fond of. He's in a lot of Australian movies. His big claim to fame is he's the brother on True Blood, which a lot of people recognize, but he's a much more interesting independent film actor. He's done a lot of great stuff. But I really love him in this, just playing a guy who wants to make money by getting shot in the chest on purpose. By the way, if you shoot someone in the head, you lose that fight. You're not allowed to just murder the other guy. You have to shoot him in the bulletproof vest. It's hilarious.
Well, you're going to be disqualified and go into timeout.
Well, believe it or not, I have actually managed to get through my entire 2015 list because I raced through them. But I feel good. We did all my titles.
Well, I'm sure we can squeeze the next 2 years into the next 5 minutes. Yeah. Three. Okay.
Do you have a couple titles you want to throw out?
No.
This is
because I'm shell shocked now. I'm afraid to.
Let's hear how the latest Coen Brothers movie is underrated, or the latest Michael Bay offering. Tell us all about it. Oh dear. Please give me a title or two. You have one or two, don't you?
No, I refuse. I'm on strike now.
All right, join us next week when I'll be reading into a paper bag all of my favorites of 2016 and 2017. There are an awful lot of things we talked about today that will come back in terms of acting performances. People who have just started blossoming as creators and actors. A lot of people who are doing phenomenal work.
And we can't wait to see all of them snatched up and forced to make superhero movies for the rest of their careers. Because that's what happens to everybody now.
Yep. I just heard an interview with John Hamm the other day where he was asked, every single time a superhero property comes up, his name gets bandied about and a bunch of fan art surfaces, often by famous creators doing their John Hamm of, say, Cable or Batman or Superman. And the interviewer asked him, how many superhero movies have you been directly, nearly associated with? And he mentioned the only film he actually had a shot at was Superman Returns, where he screen tested. And he was 30 years old when he went out for Superman Returns. He was told by the casting agent, oh, you're way too old for this. And was summarily removed from that process. And they gave it to Brandon Routh, or Ruth.
Ruth, yeah.
I can never say his name right. I think Routh is more interesting.
And of course, now they had to age him.
It is Routh. It's Routh. It rhymes with mouth. Ruth is more interesting because it's like a lady name.
Right.
I like that.
And of course, now he's not old enough, so they had to age him for that cameo in the TV show as older Superman.
Oh, right. I liked him in that, actually.
I've only seen it still, but it's like, wow, they had to go out of their way to add gray to his hair. That's funny.
But yeah. Brandon Routh is actually pretty... He's much more interesting playing older, crankier Superman than he is playing upbeat Ray Palmer, which is the character he normally plays on that show. And he's kind of wasted on that show. I'm not saying he's wonderful, but a movie I mentioned at the top of this whole thing in 2010 was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I gave a glowing recommendation that everyone on Earth should see this movie and should re-see it. I actually rewatched the movie yesterday, and much to my great surprise, it was even better than I remembered it being. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is beyond a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned.
And you also get to see Scott Pilgrim defeat both Superman and Captain America.
Exactly. Brandon Routh is in this. Scott Pilgrim, my interpretation of Scott Pilgrim for anyone who's just kind of seen it and thought it was fine or didn't like it or liked it fine enough is, have you ever really loved an album but only ever listened to it once? Probably not. It is that movie. You want to watch it again and again. Oh, we're totally out of time. In fact, we are already off the air. We'll see you next time. I looked at the wrong time.
That was a long 3 minutes.
We're 18 seconds over. Which means the last 30 seconds...
That means we're fired.
...will not be recorded. Anyway, my apologies. I really didn't mean to undercut you like that. It wasn't my plan. I just like to argue.